here with Mr. Happavator, Titus Fasawe Jr. to talk about his book, It's What You Think, The Ultimate Guide to Happiness. Welcome to the show.
Ooh, thank you
I
very
feel
much.
happy just to have you here.
Yes, I'm happy to be here.
Hey. Tell us about this. In particular, I want to know exactly how somebody who's miserable at home can change that in a very short space of time.
Okay. It's what you think. That is it, in a nutshell. Everything is what you think. Now, why you think what you do will involve your upbringing, it'll involve who you are, where you live, who your
Cultural
friends are,
pressure.
cultural
Right.
pressures. But as an individual, there's one thing that we all do. We close our eyes at night and we have that individual thinking process, but we don't all recognize it. At that point, we can think what we want to, and we often do, but we don't hold on to it.
Okay.
So you said a miserable person. These are very simple words, misery, happiness, but we don't really know what they mean.
Okay.
The truth is we're linking them to feelings. So misery will feel sadness. Happiness will feel joy. Again, we don't realize that it's linked to what we're thinking about.
Rather than to events.
Events is a response that becomes a thought.
Yeah, yeah.
So it always comes back to a thought.
Okay.
The saddest bit in this is that for a person to actually use their thoughts and produce the response they want, be it happiness, sadness, they have to realize that they can. And a lot of us,
So it's
as
about
you
agency,
grow up,
your own power.
exactly, as you grow up, you're kind of etched away from that. You're told to think in a particular way. You're told to be responsible, obedient. And all of those words are powerful and good, but they take away your ability to control your own thinking.
Do you think that it's not a very British thing? Happiness or feeling as if you can control your own destiny. I'm thinking the American dream, the
Yeah.
entitlement in the American Constitution to life, liberty and the pursuit of happiness.
Yes.
It's just, we take a leaf out of the...
Out of that book.
American
I think
yeah.
it's a very good point you've put there, because these again are things that are given to people, but you're not really told how to take it. It's almost like being given a plate of food and a fork and knife, but you've never seen a fork and knife before, and you're
that.
told to take it.
Yeah.
But someone has to teach you how to do it. And for example, I grew up half in Liverpool and half in Nigeria.
Oh, cool.
And in Nigeria, they'll say you have to suffer before you can enjoy. But they don't
say that
really.
in Wales as well.
They don't really understand that what they're saying is you have to take pain before you can know happiness, and it's not
Do you believe
effectively
that?
true. No.
No.
I totally believe that everything is what you think. Now, why you think it, that is a whole other subject that we haven't the time
Do
to
you
cover.
think it's better? I got the sense from the book that rather than analyse how you've got into a negative thinking pattern, you
Yes.
should just, almost in a cognitive, behavioural kind of way,
Yes.
break out of it by reprogramming yourself in a positive sense.
Exactly. We have what I like to call a constant monitor, which is our feelings. And when you get to the point when you realise that, and life has a strange way of doing that, a situation, an experience will force you into saying, I've had enough. And it's at that point that you can actually see that you can control your thinking. However, a lot of us won't do it. And it's not a weakness, it's just a reality
Why do you
of
think we
being
won't?
alive today. Because it's too different. And I know this from personal example because I grew up with it there. I grew up being told, look, you can do whatever you think you can. But I never believed it.
Why not?
Because I wanted proof. And
It's
proof...
about faith.
Exactly. Faith, I had a lot of experience that shook my faith. A lot of times when I thought religion isn't helping me. A lot of times when I thought my faith in myself isn't there because I don't really believe something's going to work. Now, all of those things, as I've discussed in my book, were there in my mind, but I chose to believe in them. And at some point I chose to think, well, I can actually think what I want to.
Do you think people are scared to think like that?
Yes.
Actually frightened of their own power?
Yes, because it's not so much that they see it as a power, but they see it as difference. And difference is something that is, you need strength to embrace difference. Now, a lot of people have said to me, well, where did my strength come from? And I remember my father being a vet and going to the surgery with him. and he had a surgery in an area that was renowned for National Front activity.
Oh, wow.
And there was a day, I'll never forget, when they were outside the surgery and not letting us in. And they painted and spray painted it. And then out of the blue, one of them came and said, "Come on, we've got to go. I need to find a vet. My dog isn't well."
Let me guess, your dad treated it.
In the midst of this, my dad, and I'm a teenager going, "Dad, you can't do this." And he was like, no, it's the dog, it's not them. Obviously, they said to him, "You're fine, but everyone else has to go."
Oh, wow.
But when we got after this experience, he said to me, "Right, I think I did a good thing there. What do you think?"
And you thought thinking is the
"Well,
thing.
Dad,
Yeah.
I don't know what I think. Maybe you should have told him to go. But you look like you're happy." And I almost can't get that experience out of my head because it showed me that he made a choice for his own good. He made a choice to do something that would make him feel good
I think that's
in
very
that
hard.
moment. Exactly. And having the strength to do that, I think, drained him. But at the same time, it made me realize that, right, I have to find something I can do that will give me that strength, that no matter what anyone says, I will stick by it and do what I do.
And for you, you're a Christian. I can see that from your lapel badge, and I am
Yes.
too. But what your book is saying is you don't need necessarily to subscribe to a specific theological belief. It's more about belief in yourself.
Exactly. I mean, to be honest, I wear the pin because I allege to the building more than the religion. Yeah. And I kind of look at it as something that has immense power.
The vast structure, actually, isn't it? And
Exactly.
it is itself a tribute to positive thinking because Gilbert Scott was so young when he designed it, wasn't he?
Yes, and the
Amazing.
people who built it, to have faith that you could do that kind of thing, it proves my point again and again. But I find that within this, I'm always getting people asking the paramount question of how are you always happy? What has happiness got to do with it? And my point is it's more than happiness, it's a happy approach to life. Now, this doesn't mean sadness isn't going to come to you just like rain falls sometimes, but the sun is still shining. So I prove my it's what you think point by always listening to myself. That's where it begins.
Do you shut down negative thought when they begin? Let's think of an example. I mean, there are two I can think of. One, that you hate your employment. A lot of people are very miserable at work
Yes.
and loathe their colleagues or loathe their way of living and the way it impacts on their personal life.
Yes.
Or it could be a romantic sadness.
Yeah.
Pick one.
Oh,
How would you
I'll
stop
pick
yourself? Okay, cool. How would you stop
First and
yourself from
foremost.
being negative?
Okay, employment. I've been there, had the job, and thought, I can't do this forever. Immediately I thought, who said I'm going to do this forever? Wait a minute, did I just say I'm going to do this forever?
Do you feel you've got more power over the situation? I'm just choosing to do it today.
Exactly.
Okay.
Do I have to do it forever? Am I chained to this job? So immediately I'm releasing myself from where I now know I've put myself into because it was my thought that said, I hate this job. I've asked myself, what do I really hate about it? And to be honest, the thing that I've always disliked about work is the limit. The 9 to 5 must be there.
You need
Cannot
freedom.
go anywhere else.
I'm getting
I
that
needed
feeling.
freedom.
Yeah.
I've thought to myself, how can I get that freedom? No, realistically get that freedom. And I've used that to praise myself out of the pain. I've also looked at it and thought, well, if I can do this job well that I admittedly don't like, which again is showing that I've accepted that negative energy and started to turn it around.
So it's not about denial.
No.
Okay.
The problem with negative energy is it's overwhelming like rain and not having an umbrella. You're going to get wet by it.
Yeah.
But do you accept the wetness or do you start to think of how can I get dry? That question comes into my mind. What do I do when I'm wet with all of this negative energy? What can I do? Accepting that it doesn't feel good. Accepting that you want to feel good. And being ready to do whatever it takes to get to that point. And this is where self-confidence, the people around you, who you know, what you've been through, how you've responded to
A
things.
network of support as well, so not just about you.
Never just about you.
What about my love life scenario?
This is something that I was discussing the other day with my wife.
Okay.
A lot of people do not really give as much to themselves when they are thinking of being in a relationship as they should. They don't value it as much as they
No
should.
self-nurture.
Well, if you think about looking for a flatmate, most people would say, oh, I'm not going to have a flatmate who isn't tidy. I'm not going to have a flatmate who doesn't have the ability to pay.
Tidiness, but well, I'll just take you. I know you're not tidy, but I'll just take you because I'm desperate. So no one would approach a living arrangement like that. And you're saying
Exactly.
your love life, people do. They go,
Yeah,
well,
they
all right,
will-
you'll do.
Exactly. They will take more, but they're giving more. Because really, to a life partner, it's a really big commitment.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the time we don't realise that where you've come from is going to affect how you look at your life commitment. And when you're making that leap into it, it's not something I believe you can find. However,
finds
most of
you.
us look for it, it finds you.
Okay.
I know that for me, it was always the one thing I've wanted. It was the one thing I knew that my life would not be happy if I didn't find a partner who I really loved, who I had children with, who we really loved, and we could together build a future together. Now, I look at that because that's what I was in. So it became, I'm used to this and I want this. But
So direct your thoughts, be as positive as possible, but also allow life to happen to you.
yeah, but you have to believe you deserve it.
That's fantastic. We'll be back with Titus for more in part 2. Welcome back to part 2. I'm here with Titus Fasawe Jr, or Mr. Happavator, to discuss his book, It's What You Think, The Ultimate Guide to Happiness. Welcome back, Titus.
Thank you.
What I want to do is drill down into more detail this time in the second
Yes.
half. I want to know more about, you have got 17 different chapters.
Yes, I
There's
have.
wealth, there's relationships, there's gratitude, which I was very interested in.
Okay.
Which chapter's the most important and why?
I would say the most important chapter is the first one.
Okay.
That says,
Thinking is
why
power.
thinking is power. And I mean, why that thinking power is in us is a universal question. And lots of people have mentioned it and said, look, we're born with riches because we have this thinking mind.
Which is why
And-
gratitude's important, right?
Exactly. Now, to get to gratitude is probably further down the line. To realize that what you think is what you become is a very simple thing, but you have to pay attention to your own self. If you want a lot, you have to be ready to give a lot. And you have to enjoy that giving process and expect to receive because you want to give more. Now, these are all very simple things,
Wow, that's good.
but
Yeah.
if you are a person who has never been given that self-confidence boost, I'll give you an example. I have spoken with teachers before and said, what do you do with children who fail? How do you treat them? Do you tell them, work harder?
Should
Do
you
tell
praise them anyway?
You should
Enabling
praise them. You should praise them more than the person who's just succeeded.
Yeah.
And the
that works.
reason for this is, when you go through the so-called experience of failure, what you're really doing is you're in a tougher experience. Now, it's tougher because that's how we all look at failure. It's a horrible thing, and how did you get there? You should have worked harder. However, you now have an opportunity to see your strength, because now you have to use your strength because you've been told you failed. Now, I don't believe there is anything like failure or success. There is just doing. There is just
Oh, I like
energy.
that.
There is
Energy.
interest.
Yeah.
Interest is something that we kind of take away in education, and we say you're in the class, so your interest is here. But I know from the teaching and training I do that that is so wrong. Interest is the hardest thing for any teacher to build before you can get someone to learn. So when you have somebody in the position of failure, you can at that point make that person so strong, but you have to be aware of it. You have to let them appreciate what has happened, as in, why is it a failure? What's really happened? Have you not done well because you're not interested in it?
Well, what could you do differently next time?
Exactly. And I did this with a group of 9-year-olds. And the teacher was, oh, but I've taught them this again and again and again. I'm like, taught them what? She says, oh, it's just on the curriculum. I'm like, so you haven't broken it down to something that's realistic for them. You haven't given them an idea of how this can lead them somewhere else.
So it's about connecting in some
it.
way.
The biggest issue became, how are we showing these children that they are really learning how to learn? Forgetting whatever subject or topic we're doing, they are learning how to learn. They are, from that, building their interest. And to cut a long story short, now they want me to put together something for them. And literally, what I've done is a one-day program to show you how you can control your thoughts for just one day. Don't look
Tell
at
us
doing
more
it
about
for
that
more.
now. Tell us more.
Okay. It starts with beginning your day.
Okay.
And I mean from the moment where you open your eyes, what is your first thought? Did you pay attention to it? Did you think
Should you
that you
always
could
pay
create
attention
it?
to your thoughts?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Think of it this way. If you're going to cook something, we've got a set of ingredients to make it well. If you don't pay attention to that set of ingredients, you know at a minimum, you are not giving the best chance at producing what you're trying to cook.
Okay, yeah.
So those ingredients are the same in our thinking mind.
Okay.
And let's give you a classic example. You wake up in the morning,
Right.
open your eyes and think, oh, God, I don't want to go to work again. I really don't like my job and the people there. Oh, I hope I don't go. But you're getting up and you're going. You know you're going to go. So you're doubly hurting yourself. And what you're actually doing as well is you're predicting your world. Nothing's happened yet,
That's true.
but you're predicting it's going to be a horrible day.
So what could you do to change it?
Open your eyes and actually say, I'm alive. That is a good point. No matter what I think, that's a good point, because no guarantee says I'm going to open my eyes and actually be
No.
alive.
No, it's a bonus.
Or
isn't
know
it?
that I'm alive.
Yeah.
But since I am, what would I really like to happen today? I'd like to be happy. Because we all like to be happy. For whatever reason, that feeling of happiness is naturally good in us. But we're not all connected with how can we produce that. So, how do I produce it? My mum always used to say, have a minute of laughter.
Okay.
Just laugh.
That's nice.
I used to say to her, and this is why I think to myself, to help people is easier because I'm often in the position that they're in, or I've been there.
Yeah, okay, so you can
What am I going to
empathise.
laugh at is your first question.
Yeah.
And then you start to think of all the things that are going to go on in your day that you don't like. So you're pushing yourself further away from the joy that you want. But you have to start somewhere. Thinking of what that first thought is. Trying to have something in your morning that produces a good morning.
Like, I'm always telling myself I'm too busy to do certain things, actually. It's
Well,
bad,
that's the
isn't it?
first thing to change.
Workaholic, you see.
That's the first thing to change. There's nothing wrong with having a work ethic. There's nothing wrong with having things you want to produce. But how about putting yourself in a better position to produce it?
Yeah, yeah.
So if there's anything you do on any day, you must give yourself time. Because to give yourself time is to produce a better self.
What I find with some of my students is they often feel they don't have enough time to, for example, rest. It's a myth that they're not working hard. They are working all the time for money in order to support themselves, and at various different kind of competing sort of different modules and different levels, constantly reading, constantly writing, thinking. And I'm saying take some time off, do something different, exercise, that kind of stuff to bring you back to you.
Yeah.
But especially at this time of year, there's a feeling that, oh, no, I couldn't possibly allow myself the time to do that, but you're saying you should.
Yeah, because when you think to yourself, I can't allow myself the time to do that, that is a stressful creation producing in yourself. You're thinking that you have limited time.
Because your work does, I think, fill your time anyway. If you give yourself a boundary, would you recommend a regular routine or a structure or certain breaks? Or
I would recommend something simpler than that.
Okay.
And by that I mean accepting that I am me, and whatever I do, I will do better if I'm in a position to do that. So what can I do to better my position in life? Now, all of these things around you, the constant ones of money and work and jobs and
Because
how
wealth
far am I
features
going to
in the
get?
book, doesn't it? Wealth
Exactly.
creation.
But
Yeah.
what is wealth? Most people will consider wealth to be money,
I think
and
it's
money
love.
alone.
I think it's love.
The first wealth I would consider is being able to live
Okay.
and appreciate being alive.
Mhm.
The second wealth, being able to love and appreciate the feeling of giving and receiving love.
Yeah.
Third, being able to give and appreciate the fact of having something to give.
Even if it's something little, or especially if it is, right? You don't need to make flamboyant gestures.
Why must we measure it as being little or big?
Okay.
Give. Because remember, what we're trying to do here is produce a mental thinking process that puts us in a better position to do whatever it is we're going to do. So there has to be small steps that we take into this. And I think that's the one thing that stops people. They see it and they see the potential. Yes, I want to be happier. Yes, life would be better.
I'm going to think positive.
But how am I going to get there? Exactly. I don't have the time to get there. So in that moment when they're thinking about not having the time to get there, they could be thinking about, how about if I just spend a minute? Just a minute each day. To just think of, how do I really feel? Just a minute. Oh, I haven't got a minute to do that because I need to get all this work done.
Stress-oriented culture, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like a vicious circle.
In every one day, we only have a limited amount of conscious hours. And a lot of the time, we are squandering those conscious hours by doing what we think we should do without ever looking into our own selves, selfishly, but positively, and saying, what do I really want out of life? What can really make my life better? Those that do it, we find, are the people who either have no other choice, or the people who, for whatever reason, do it naturally. They naturally will get up and think, yeah, today's going to be a good day. So everything I do is going to be good. It's almost a Midas touch. They will rebuke any of the what-ifs. They will rebuke anything that says it won't happen, because why won't it happen? I'm going to do it, so it's happening already. Over time, and this is almost the repetitive side of it, they will get used to being that way and see nothing else. But the problem that I find is most people are used to being the way that isn't helping them, which is everything that happens, let me look for what could go wrong so I can get myself ready.
Or take it all very personally.
Exactly. Instead of allowing myself to be happy, I will be ready to be sad. Just because I feel more comfortable with it.
So you start your day more positively, you see it as a blessing, you think about planning some activities that will self-nurture.
Yeah, you think about stopping time.
Okay.
I get people to begin by doing it a minute in every hour.
Okay.
Stop time and just think of something that makes you feel comfortable, happy, happier, at peace. And a lot of people say, I haven't got anything that would do that. So your first thing is to find something that would do that. Your real first thing is to listen to yourself and ask, why am I always looking for an obstacle? Why am I putting an obstacle in my own thinking on what it is that I'm trying to do, even though I know it's for my own good? Why won't I just let myself be happier? And this is
Get
something...
out of your own way, which is something you were talking about earlier.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, we're all in our own way to a certain extent, but appreciating that, listening to yourself. I've said to people, look in the mirror, speak to yourself, see how you are as a person. And going back to the relationship side of things, to me, before you can really be in a relationship, you have to be in a relationship with yourself. You have to really be a person who is strong and loves yourself worthily. And then you're worthy of love from others, and you will attract somebody who is in that same position.
Thanks very much for coming in to speak to us. That's Titus Fasawe Jr. It's What You Think, the ultimate guide to happiness. Thank you for watching About Books. We'll see you next time.